Hi, I'm Maya,
Hi, I'm Sarouna.
and my sentence would be في التربة الذاكرة كهف حيث يرجع كل شيء ولا شيء يرجع تماما, which is the lyrics from الضوء. Everything comes back the same, from the album عالم تاني or Other World. And this sentence translates to in the soil, memory is a cave where everything comes back and nothing comes back the same. The pros of being a woman in this context aren't many, but I guess the one thing that I can think of is when you actually create a community in this industry, when you find other women that are supportive, that and you speak the same language and you understand each other in the same way, and you can talk about the difficulties in the industry together, and I think that bonds you together on a different level. And the cons the cons are many, I think, and I mean, as much as it is just like being a woman in many other industries, and it's the same difficulties. I think each industry or each role has its own difficulties. One of them is actually like being a singer and the expectations of what a singer should look like, and how a singer is always the person in front on the stage, and how they're expected to be representing the gender, for example, in a very specific way, and I think, and performing it in a very specific way, and I think that's such a difficult thing to maneuver. Although I'm an experimental musician and I don't place myself in very conventional contexts, I still think that we are still expected to look a certain and a very specific way, to perform our gender in a very linear way. Yeah.
I think a lot of the cons that Maya mentioned also apply to the less maybe performative aspects, maybe performative in other ways. And in my experience, as someone who works more behind the scenes of the industry as a producer and engineer, there's also the cons of constantly being in a male-dominated industry, and that's true for other creative fields, I feel like. So having to outperform, having to outwork, and constantly be in a position where you're proving yourself to your male counterparts is a very tiring position to be in. And I think that's one of the biggest cons, is that existing within this space where you feel like you can be constantly overlooked or undervalued is really, really difficult. And so the pros being the community that helps sustain you through that. So one of the questions I wish a journalist would ask me is my relationship to Jerusalem, where I was born, and how it impacts my music, or how I make music. And I think that being born in a city that is extremely layered, intense, beautiful, charming, and very painful at the same time really impacts the way I view my music making process. And I feel like having a childhood in a city like that really changes the way we think about our relationships to our cities in general. I think that the complexity that Jerusalem offers or exists within is in some ways mirrored in my music, and the way I think about making my music is taken from all of these different aspects of growing up in Jerusalem. Well, another question I feel like that ties in directly with the Jerusalem one is so musical influences and the music making process, or my music making process. And I feel like growing up listening to a huge variety of musical influences in many different genres, and being at the intersection of a lot of different cultural existences really had a huge impact on how I think about my music and the way my instruments tie into my music making process. My fascination with electronic music and sampling, a huge part of it comes from the sounds that I grew up listening to or being around in Jerusalem. I feel like that greatly impacted how I view sound in general, in cities as soundscapes and how they can influence your process.
I dreamt that I remember so vividly was about maybe 12, 15 years ago, and I dreamt that I was going from the top of the hill down, and I passed by a mask market, and I decided to go through it. It was full of beautiful masks, like booths of different types and styles of masks, and there was chickens running around all the time. And I was walking through it and feeling amazed by the beauty of the colors and of the masks. And when I got to the end of it, I look to my left and I see a beautiful landscape view, and it was hazy, and two of the hills were flipped upside down. The landscape was like it was definitely like a Palestinian landscape, and it was very impressionable for me, and that's why I remember it until now. I don't think I would go to an afterlife. I think I would just disappear from existence, and that's that. But if I had to be buried with something in order for it to take me back, it would be one of my grandmother's pots, or pan, actually. I really love that pan, and I feel like I've always appreciated it and appreciated its sound, but also it's such a nice idea to take something that's my grandma's, my first actually experience of like a close person dying, back to life with me, back to the afterlife with me.
I think I would take
my recording studio. So I can sample the afterlife and make a track.
Nice.
Probably some personal objects, but mostly the recording studio.
Especially that you've spent your life making money and spending it on it.
So you better come with me to the afterlife.